And every coaching decision, every roster shuffle, every QB battle now happens under the shadow of that cage. Even if Shedeur looked amazing in practice, even if Gabriel looked sharp against the second team, the Browns' future is still tied to Watson like an anchor, whether he can swim or not. The Flacco illusion. Then there's Joe Flacco, the ultimate reminder of Cleveland's problem. He wasn't supposed to matter. He was supposed to be a stopgap. Instead, he instantly outplayed Watson and gave the fan base actual hope. And while Browns fans cheered his late-season heroics, deep down, everyone knew what it represented: humiliation. Because if a nearly 40-year-old quarterback you signed mid-season runs your offense better than your 9-figure franchise QB, what does that say about your organization? It says your plan is broken. It says your evaluation is off. It says your window isn't even open. It's painted shut. Shedeur's non-opportunity, Jason Kelce hammered this point. Shedeur didn't even get the chance to fall on his face. He was tossed into reps with practice squad linemen, while Gabriel got pampered with first-team protection. Of course Gabriel looked cleaner. Of course Shedeur looked panicked. That's not development, that's optics management. The Browns weren't actually trying to find the best QB. They were staging a circus act to protect their narrative. And here's the irony. Fans saw right through it. You can tell Browns fans anything you want in the pressers. They've been sold snake oil for decades. But once they see a rookie QB running for his life in preseason, while another gets pampered with clean pockets, they know what's up. And the only question left is, why does this team keep doing this to itself? The never-ending loop. Here's the grim truth. Cleveland is stuck in a loop. Overspend on the savior, panic when it doesn't work. Rotate backups until someone looks competent. Celebrate like you cracked the code. Watch it implode again next year. Kelce wasn't exposing a temporary crisis. He was pointing out that the Browns' cycle of dysfunction keeps repeating itself, and the Watson contract practically guarantees it's not breaking anytime soon. Cleveland isn't running a football team right now. They're running a traveling act where each season brings new faces but the same old pratfalls, trapped under the spotlight. Here's the kicker. Even when Cleveland occasionally gets things right, building a top-5 defense, snagging free agents, drafting playmakers, the circus swallows it whole. Because no matter how good the other parts of the roster look, the quarterback position and the $230 million chained to it dictates the perception. And guess what? Perception matters. It matters in the locker room, where veterans are tired of instability. It matters to fans deciding if they're buying jerseys. It matters to opponents who circle Cleveland on the schedule as vulnerable. The Browns aren't just fighting to win games. They're fighting the shadow of their own history. And right now, history is winning. Jason Kelce didn't pull Cleveland into the circus. He just pointed to the tent, lit up the sign, and reminded everyone that the show never ends. And unless something changes drastically, the Browns aren't walking out of this loop anytime soon. Here's the part that makes the Browns situation so much worse. They don't play in the NFC South, where you can stumble along at 9-8 and backdoor your way into a playoff spot. They don't play in the AFC South, where the division champ changes every year like a rotating door prize. No, the Browns play in the AFC North, and the AFC North does not care about your feelings. Baltimore Ravens, a cheat code in cleats. Start with Baltimore. Lamar Jackson is essentially a human joystick who looks like he was created in a Madden lab. 1 minute, he's juking linebackers out of their cleats. The next, he's throwing darts 30 yards on the run. If he stays healthy, the Ravens will always be in the hunt. Add guys like Mark Andrews, plus a defensive tradition that never goes quietly. And you're up against an opponent that shows up every Sunday expecting to physically break you in half. Baltimore doesn't lose games. They wear you down until you lose yourself. And Cleveland, with all its quarterback uncertainty, is expected to keep up with that? Please, Raven fans bring crab cakes to the tailgate. Browns fans bring anxiety meds. Cincinnati Bengals, the cool assassin. Then you've got Cincinnati. Joe Burrow doesn't just play football, he conducts symphonies. Broken pinky finger? Still drops dimes. Busted calf? Still throws 3 touchdowns in 25 minutes. And surrounded by Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and an offense designed to destroy souls. Burrow lives in Cleveland's nightmares. Even on a down day, the Bengals can put 27 points on the board like it's nothing, while the Browns are still deciding if their quarterback can find the end zone without binoculars. When Cincinnati rolls into your stadium, it feels less like a football game and more like a professional embarrassment waiting to happen. Pittsburgh Steelers, chaos that never dies. And then there's Pittsburgh. Look, they don't exactly have the cleanest quarterback situation either. Kenny Pickett looked lost, and now they're juggling veterans like it's a clearance rack. But if there's one rule in football, it's this. Mike Tomlin does not lose seasons, ever. The man could drag a roster of UPS drivers and still find a way to grind out 9 wins. It's not just stubbornness, it's culture. No matter how chaotic things look in September, by December, the Steelers are still standing, still swinging, still ruining someone else's playoff hopes. Pittsburgh isn't glamorous, they're not explosive, but they're the cockroach of the NFL. You cannot kill them. And Cleveland, year after year, watches the Steelers stay relevant by doing the exact opposite of what the Browns do. Stability, resilience, execution. So let's put this in perspective. Baltimore, an MVP at quarterback and a defense that chews up rookies. Cincinnati, a Super Bowl caliber assassin with the coolest pulse in football. Pittsburgh, a team that refuses to die, even when they probably should. And then, Cleveland, a franchise with maybe the best edge rusher in the league, some real talent on defense, ... And yet every year finds itself duct taping the most important position in sports. A team with fans praying the offense doesn't implode so the defense doesn't waste another Pro Bowl season. In a division where good enough is still a guaranteed losing record, the Browns are staring across the line at 3 programs that know their identity, while Cleveland is still Googling directions to find theirs. It's not a fair fight. It never is. And this is why Jason Kelce's comments sting so badly. Because in the AFC North, you don't have room for narratives. You don't have room for missed contracts, failed experiments, or QB carousels. One bad month, you're done. One key injury, pack it up. A $230 million quarterback who hasn't looked elite in 4 years? That's not just a problem. That's a death sentence when Burrow, Lamar, and Tomlin are waiting across the line. So sure, Cleveland's defense looks elite on paper. Yes, Flacco gave fans a spark. And yes, Shedeur Sanders has flashes of upside. But none of that matters when you're swimming in a division full of sharks with open wounds already bleeding in the water. Because the AFC North doesn't care about your story. It doesn't care about your PR spin. It doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about breaking you. And Cleveland still can't figure out how not to break itself first. You know it's bad when Jason Kelce, yes, recently retired, beer-chugging, parade mom dressing, future Hall of Famer Jason Kelce decides he's had enough of staying quiet and sets your entire franchise on fire with just a few words. No drama, no shouting, just a calmly delivered, unfiltered truth bomb that turned the Browns season into a 3-alarm meltdown before it even started. And the craziest part? He was right. One moment, Cleveland's front office thought they were riding a wave of momentum. Talented defense, flashes of brilliance from Joe Flacco, and just enough hope to think, hey, maybe we're finally not a joke anymore. Then, boom. Kelce opens his mouth and obliterates the illusion. Cleveland's already on fire. They're one quarterback injury away from total collapse. That quote alone apparently sent billionaire owner Jimmy Haslam into full soap opera villain mode, pacing the office, muttering about loyalty, sweating through his designer jacket while assistants started quietly updating their resumes. The Browns didn't just get criticized, they got exposed. We're talking about a franchise that spent 20+ years trying to convince its fans that this year will be different, that they've escaped the cursed carousel of mediocrity, that the quarterback they overspent on, again, would finally be the one who saves them. Except this time, the cracks aren't hiding anymore. Kelce didn't just point them out, he held up a megaphone. And it wasn't angry trolling. This wasn't petty retired guy bitterness. This was a Super Bowl champion, one of the most respected players in the game, telling it exactly how it is. No filter, no fluff, just cold, clinical truth. Sanders didn't even get a real shot. Flacco looked 10 times better than Watson. And the leadership? Duct tape and denial. The media ran with it. Fans roasted their own team harder than rivals did. And Haslam reportedly lost it behind closed doors, hating the fact that everything Kelce said was already being whispered in the locker room by beat writers and inside NFL circles, long before it was ever public. The Browns' biggest nightmare came true. The narrative got away from them. They've always been able to control hope. Each season starts with shiny graphics, pumped-up press conferences, and stories about culture change. But not this time, because Jason Kelce is that guy. When he speaks, it means something. It's not cheap content. It's a red flag flapping in the wind, screaming, "This franchise doesn't just have problems. It's one misstep away from full implosion." And what's worse? The fans know it. The opponents know it. The locker room knows it. It was already an open secret that Cleveland's quarterback situation was a clown show, rotating QBs through like gas station coffee cups, hoping one finally serves championship flavor. But now, the whole world knows. The Deshaun Watson disaster? No longer a quiet concern. It's now a national headline. Shedeur Sanders? Not given a chance to throw more than 2 decent passes behind a beat-up O-line? Flacco practically grabbed from a timeshare and still outperformed their $230 million investment. And Jason Kelce? He just pointed at all of it and said, "You see that? That's not a contender. That's a house of cards, already halfway collapsed." It hit harder because it was true. And that's what makes this story so dangerous for Cleveland's front office. This wasn't scandal. It was accountability. And that's something Cleveland never handles well. So now the question becomes, where does a franchise go when the blindfold is ripped off mid-season and everyone's staring at the same train wreck they've been trying to dress up for years? Well, we're about to find out. Because Jason Kelce just hit send on the tweet that Browns fans have been silently drafting in their heads for years. This wasn't just another off-season soundbite. This was the moment reality finally slapped Cleveland in the face. And like we said, he wasn't wrong. Before Jason Kelce even opened his mouth, the Cleveland Browns were already skating on thin ice. The only problem? They thought they were on solid ground. When you're a franchise like Cleveland, chaos is part of the brand. But this time, it wasn't supposed to be. This offseason was supposed to mark the end of the dysfunction, the start of something stable, something promising. They had the headlines lined up. Top 5 defense looks elite. Flacco resurrected the season. Watson returning healthy and motivated. The Browns were finally, allegedly, back on track. Then Kelce came along, basically took a sledgehammer to the front door and yelled, "You're fooling no one." And just like that, the house caught fire. Because the thing about Jason Kelce's words is that they weren't injected with rage or theatrics. He didn't slam the table. He didn't go on a viral wild rant. He casually dismantled the Browns' entire offseason like a man taking apart IKEA shelves. Calm, relaxed, methodical. Cleveland, you're already on fire. You just don't realize it yet. Boom. The mask ripped off. Kelce didn't spill tea. He served the whole pot, piping hot, while the Browns front office scrambled to find a napkin. He pointed out what even some of the fans didn't want to hear. That Watson's $230 million contract is looking like the worst deal in NFL history. That Joe Flacco, a guy not even on the roster a few months ago, showed more control and productivity than anyone expected from the supposed franchise QB. That rookie Shedeur Sanders wasn't even given a chance, tossed into live action behind barely functional blocking, while other QBs got max protection and all the reps. And the worst part? He's not wrong about any of it. The Browns didn't get torched by some salty sports journalist searching for views. They got checked, publicly and precisely, by one of the most respected players in recent NFL history. This wasn't a clickbait headline. This was a mirror held up to the one place NFL teams hate being exposed: reality. Kelce saw the shaky locker room, the patchwork offense, the ownership disconnect. The we'll figure it out later approach to the most important position in sports. And he called it exactly what it is: a mess waiting to explode. The fan base? They didn't defend the team. They agreed. They memed themselves before anyone else could. Because if there's one thing Browns fans know well, it's disaster. They can smell it from a mile away. And now the rest of the league smells it too, thanks to Kelce. The Browns aren't just misunderstood. They aren't unlucky. They're structurally unsound, and Jason Kelce just yanked a support beam out of the ceiling in front of a national audience. So where does this leave Cleveland? You've got your top-paid quarterback surrounded by doubt. You've got a fan base that's already preparing for heartbreak. You've got the entire media circling like vultures. And it's not even week one. Pressure? It's here now, and it's real. The Browns thought they had everything under control, but thanks to one man, one voice, one veteran with nothing to lose, the fire is already burning. And Cleveland's running out of excuses, fast. At this point, it's hard to tell if the Cleveland Browns are an NFL team, or just a long-running experimental art piece about organized disappointment. Because if there's one thing this franchise excels at above all else, yes, even above Myles Garrett pressuring quarterbacks, it's finding new, creative, and absolutely soul-crushing ways to fail. It's almost impressive. While other teams fight to build dynasties, the Browns have mastered something even rarer: repackaging chaos like it's part of the plan. Remember Johnny Manziel? The next Joe Montana they drafted like he was the savior? Only to find out halfway through the season that he spent more time studying bottle service hours than playbooks. Or how about the time they stuck with Hugh Jackson long after it was clear he couldn't win a game if you spotted him 20 points and a 12-man defense? And let's not forget the glorious day the Browns gave $230 million guaranteed to a quarterback with more rust than an abandoned steel mill and a growing pile of off-field scandals. That decision alone deserves its own ESPN docuseries narrated by Morgan Freeman titled, "The Moment It All Went Wrong." Again, the franchise just can't help itself. They get close to normalcy, even flirt with stability, then yanks the carpet out from under their own feet like it's a team bonding drill. And the fans? Browns fans have been through so much emotional trauma that they don't even react like normal fan bases anymore. They anticipate collapse. A healthy wide receiver? He's probably tearing his ACL in week 3. Quarterback looks good in camp? Yeah, but have you seen our protection scheme? Start the season 4-2, please stop. We know how this ends. No other fan base pre-grieves their schedule like Browns fans do. They walk into the season like it's a movie they've seen 100 times, and it always leads to the same ending: dropped passes, awkward pressers, trade rumors, and a quarterback no one trusts. It's not even about being bad anymore. It's about being embarrassingly inventive with how bad it gets. Like rolling out a depth chart with 4 quarterbacks, none of whom have proven they can last a season. including one who literally walked in off the street and immediately played better than your $230 million investment. It's turning Shedeur Sanders into a scapegoat after 2 drives, while giving Dillon Gabriel extra reps like he's plotting a Super Bowl run. It's entering every offseason with fresh slogans and big promises, only to end the year as a national meme generator. Again. Put it this way, if the NFL had a comedy of errors championship, the Browns would be in the Hall of Fame by now. No questions asked. And yet somehow, after all of it, they convince themselves again, every single year. This is our season. We're finally built to last. Once our quarterback finds rhythm, just wait until Watson's fully healthy. These lines are spoken so often, they might as well be printed on the season tickets. Because Browns fans don't just support a franchise, they suffer through a shared psychological experiment. And what Jason Kelce did, he didn't expose a new problem. He just held up the mirror. That's what made it sting. He didn't throw shade. He didn't overanalyze. He didn't troll. He simply said what Browns fans already know deep down. This team, for all its roster upgrades and front office buzzwords, still doesn't know how to get out of its own way. They don't just make mistakes. They specialize in them. Spectacularly, publicly, hilariously. And if something isn't on fire, just wait. Cleveland will find a way to spark it. Probably by overpaying for it, mismanaging it, or coaching it straight into a loss. That's not strategy. It's tradition. And Kelce? He just said what we were all thinking. Let's get one thing clear. If Shedeur Sanders was garbage, fans would have said it. If he came in, tossed ducks, looked confused, and couldn't hold a cadence, Browns fans, some of the most brutally honest in football, would have cooked him on sight. But that's not what happened. Because Shedeur never even got the chance to fail. Not really. The kid walked into one of the most dysfunctional quarterback rooms in the league and got thrown into the system like an afterthought. He wasn't offered a runway. He wasn't even offered second-string protection. What did he get? Third-string blocking, rotating personnel, practice squad receivers, practice reps buried behind QBs with less upside. And then the Browns had the nerve to look surprised when the results weren't elite? That's not coaching. That's sabotage. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, bless his heart, got VIP treatment like he was a made man. First-team reps, max protection, hand-picked plays. The kind of cushion that makes any rookie QB look decent. Of course he looks solid. It's easy to complete passes when you aren't running for your life. When you've got time in the pocket, real chemistry with the receivers, and a pre-installed game plan designed specifically to make you look NFL ready. Compare that to Shedeur, who basically got tossed into the meat grinder with a good luck rookie smirk from the coaching staff. And what's worse, he got judged off that scripted failure. Jason Kelce said it best, even if you don't like Shedeur, he didn't even get a chance to be bad. Read that again. You can think Shedeur's overhyped. You can argue he's still got things to prove, but you can't deny that Cleveland set him up with nothing. No rhythm, no spacing, no time, no consistency. Just rotating chaos and turned-up expectations. All while media, fans, and even some inside that building kept whispering about the kid not looking real. Gee, you think? Try running a full read option when the O-line is treating defenders like VIP guests. Try proving your accuracy when your receivers are barely breaking out of their routes because they know they're never seeing the ball anyway. It wasn't about talent. It was about access, opportunity, level playing field, and Shedeur got none of it. Yet somehow, people still form takes like, he's shaky, didn't look prepared, doesn't have that command. Again, based on what? 2 drives in a sloppy preseason game with practice squad linemen and no pass protection? This is why Kelce spoke up. Because the tape doesn't lie, and neither does the setup. You don't have to crown Shedeur today. You don't even have to like the guy. But if you're going to judge his performance, at least ask if the situation was built for him to succeed. And here's the real kicker. Even with all that stacked against him, there were flashes. A little shake and zip on intermediate throws. A few smart audibles. Pocket presence that didn't scream panic, even when the walls collapsed around him. Shedeur didn't unravel. He survived in a setting built against him. The Browns didn't just fail to support him. They scripted the failure, then used it to validate their predetermined pecking order. A pecking order that Kelce blew holes through with one single quote. And now, fans are rightfully asking, why didn't he get the same look as Gabriel? If your $230 million starter is shaky, why not give the rookie with the highest ceiling a real audition? If Flacco wasn't even on the radar until mid-season, why is Shedeur the only one being kept on such a short leash? Because here's the truth. In the NFL, reps mean everything. And someone made damn sure Shedeur had just enough reps to fail, but never enough to shine. That's not coaching. That's a cover your A maneuver disguised as evaluation. And you don't need to love Shedeur to see it. You just need to be honest. Here's the important thing people miss when they see Jason Kelce's comments. This wasn't a rant. This wasn't some bitter, retired vet spewing takes for clicks. It was a wake-up call. Because when Jason Kelce speaks, people across the NFL don't roll their eyes. They lean in. Think about it. This is a guy who played 13 seasons in the trenches for Philly, anchored one of the toughest offensive lines in football, and stacked Hall of Fame credentials without ever needing to be flashy. He's respected not just by teammates, but by everyone. His word carries weight. So when Kelce looks straight at Cleveland and essentially says, "This franchise is duct taping disasters together and hoping no one notices," that isn't anger. That isn't spite. That is experience talking. Kelce has lived inside functioning organizations. He's bled through high-pressure playoff games, stood alongside MVP-level quarterbacks, and seen firsthand what it looks like when a franchise knows how to win. Which is exactly why his critique stings so badly, because it comes from a place of credibility. This isn't a sports talk host trying to stir up drama. This isn't a rival player clowning for laughs. This is Jason Kelce pulling the fire alarm and saying what Browns fans secretly knew all along. The building is already burning. The difference maker. What makes Kelce's words so dangerous for Cleveland's front office is that they unmasked what everyone was whispering. Behind closed doors, in media break rooms, in locker room chatter. That Deshaun Watson was a financial anchor, not a savior. That Shedeur Sanders didn't even get a fair chance to compete. That Joe Flacco outshined everyone despite being dragged off the couch mid-season. When those truths come from a retired legend, they don't fade away, they echo. Fans amplify them, media headlines repeat them. Other players around the league start nodding. Because when someone like Kelce points out dysfunction, you know it's real and not exaggerated. Owner panic. And that's why Jimmy Haslam lost it. It's not that Kelce was harsh, it's that Kelce was right. Owners, especially billionaire owners, don't fear losing games as much as they fear losing the narrative. A loss can be explained away. A bad season can be spun as a rebuild. But when someone like Jason Kelce publicly shows the cracks you've been hiding, the illusion of control shatters. Imagine Haslam pacing in his office, steam in his ears, not because Jason Kelce said something unfair, but because he said out loud what Browns fans were muttering all offseason long. It wasn't noise. It was a warning. There's a key difference between noise and warnings. Noise is endless debates on sports radio. Noise is meme accounts dunking on a franchise. Noise fades, but warnings, they stick. And Jason Kelce's critique wasn't noise. It was a road flare warning. A blunt reminder that the Browns' fragile, "we've got this under control" narrative was about 10 seconds from collapsing in plain sight. That's why the moment mattered. It wasn't that Kelce buried Cleveland. It was that he told them plainly, "You're not fooling anybody anymore." Why this changes the conversation? Hot takes and mockery come and go. But when Jason Kelce uses his Hall of Fame level reputation to say, this team is already in trouble, you have to listen. The league notices, fans notice, and most importantly, the players in Cleveland notice. Because every starter, every coach, every rookie grinding through reps hears that commentary. And whether they'd admit it or not, it becomes the unspoken shadow in the locker room. Are we really building something here? Or are we just waiting for it all to collapse? That's not bitterness. That's not trolling. That's a wake-up call. And Cleveland's problem is simple. They can't afford to keep hitting snooze. If you want to understand why Jason Kelce's words rattled Jimmy Haslam to his billionaire core, look no further than the $230 million elephant in the room. That elephant has a name, Deshaun Watson. When the Browns dropped their historic fully guaranteed contract on Watson, they rewrote NFL history. Front offices gasped, agents celebrated, and opposing fans laughed. Even in real time, it felt less like a bold move and more like a kamikaze dive. Fast forward to now, and guess what? The critics weren't being haters, they were telling the future. Because in 2024, Watson doesn't look like the golden ticket. He looks like the nuclear mistake that's suffocating Cleveland's future. The price tag of false hope. Let's spell this out plain. $230 million guaranteed. Nearly a quarter of the entire salary cap tied to one player. A quarterback who hasn't looked truly elite since his Houston days 4 seasons ago. For that investment, what has Cleveland gotten? Extended absences due to suspension, lingering injuries, on-field performances that range from rusty to flat-out depressing, and the lingering mystery of whether Watson still remembers how to play like the franchise cornerstone he once was. Instead of a savior, Watson has become an albatross, a financial chokehold the Browns themselves put around their own neck, shackled by their own deal. This is what Kelce was really shining a spotlight on. The Browns can't escape. They can't cut Watson. The financial fallout would cripple the roster. They can't trade him. Nobody in the league is swallowing that bloated deal. Their only solution is to pray he magically reverts to vintage Watson. But here's the problem. Hope isn't a strategy. And now, because all that money is locked up, the Browns can't build desperately needed depth. Instead of fortifying the offensive line or bolstering weapons for whatever quarterback emerges, they're stitching together holes with duct tape and discount signings. In the AFC North, the most unforgiving division in football, that's a death sentence. Humiliation amplified. The biggest insult isn't just the contract itself. It's the fact that in the middle of this so-called Watson era, a 39-year-old Joe Flacco strolled off his couch, dusted off his arm, and instantly looked like the best quarterback in Cleveland. That wasn't a heartwarming comeback story. It was an indictment, a neon sign screaming, "You overpaid and you got fleeced." Imagine sinking hundreds of millions into a sure thing, only for a journeyman legend to waltz in and embarrass the crown jewel of your franchise. That's not bad luck. That's organizational malpractice, and fans know it. You could see the twisted joy mixed with humiliation in the fan base when Flacco slung touchdowns in bunches. Exciting? Yes. Embarrassing? Absolutely. Because if Joe Flacco is your light at the end of the tunnel, you're in the wrong tunnel. Why the world believes Kelce. This is why Kelce's words landed like dynamite. Because nobody had to check the tape twice. The evidence is already there. Watson doesn't look like a $230 million anything. He looks like the face of a financial straitjacket. And once a voice as respected as Kelce says it, the illusion vanishes. You can't spin this in a press conference. You can't tweet it away. Fans and players know the truth. Cleveland mortgaged its future for a quarterback who might be permanently stuck in the past. The fallout. The Watson deal didn't just cost Cleveland financially. It cost them trust. Trust from the fan base. Trust from analysts. Trust from everyone who once dared to believe the franchise was trending up. Now the Browns sit trapped. A contender on paper, but a prisoner in reality. A billion-dollar team running from a $230 million mistake. Jason Kelce wasn't piling on. He was holding the flashlight closer. And the more light shines on this deal, the more obvious the truth becomes. The Browns didn't just gamble, they detonated their future. By now, it's not about football anymore. It's about optics. And when Jason Kelce casually ripped the curtain off, nobody in the NFL world was actually shocked at the state of the Browns. The only ones shocked were the people sitting in Cleveland's front office. Because somebody finally said out loud what they've been privately terrified of for months. Jimmy Haslam and his brass didn't react to Kelce because he was wrong. They reacted because he was right. And nothing makes billionaire owners lose their minds faster than having the truth dragged out in public, where everyone can point, laugh, and meme it to death. Narrative over reality. This is Cleveland in a nutshell under Haslam. Control the story, ignore the cracks. Press releases talk about progress. Training camp videos hype up culture shifts. Coaches smile in interviews about quarterback competition. But then an unfiltered Hall of Famer like Kelce steps in, laughs at the facade, and bluntly says, "If Joe Flacco is your starter, you've got a problem. If Shedeur is QB1 right now, you've got a problem. Basically, no matter who's under center, you've got a problem." Now, suddenly, it's not glossy PR, it's damage control. Because the illusion of order has been ripped away. And Cleveland hates that more than losing games. Haslam in meltdown mode. Picture Haslam in his office after those comments lit up social media. Pacing, face red, memos flying about spin control, assistants ducking their heads, hoping not to make eye contact when he storms by. According to insiders, his fury wasn't about the games, it was about the perception. He doesn't want national TV openly discussing whether the Watson contract is the single biggest blunder in NFL history. He doesn't want memes circulating of Shedeur ducking behind a collapsing third-string line. He'd rather fight Kelce's reputation than face the reality his own decisions built. Coaches caught in the crossfire. And then there's Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry stuck in the middle of this storm. Kelce's bombs didn't just hit Haslam, they landed right on the coaching staff too. Because while the owner fumes, fans are now openly asking, why didn't Shedeur get equal reps? Why did Dylan Gabriel get shielded while Sanders got hung out to dry? If you're going to talk about letting the best man win, why does it look like politics, not performance? Those questions don't go away. They linger. They sit in every presser. They lurk in every highlight reel breakdown. And for Stefanski, it's brutal. Because no matter what he says now, it sounds defensive. The more he insists everything's fine, the clearer it is that everything's not fine. Fans side with the outsider. Then there's the most embarrassing piece. Browns fans, loyal, wounded, scarred fans, didn't rally to defend their team. They didn't shout back at Jason Kelce. They agreed with him. They roasted their own front office online harder than opposing fan bases did. Because deep down, fans can live with losing seasons. They can't live with being lied to. When Kelce told the truth, fans nodded like, finally, someone said it. That's the real danger for Haslam & Co. When your fan base sides with an outsider against you, you've lost control of the locker room and the stadium before week 1 even starts. The bigger problem. The Browns aren't panicking because Kelce embarrassed them one time. They're panicking because his words introduced a new expectation. No more excuses. Now, every time Watson limps, every time Shedeur dodges a free rusher, every time Flacco looks like father time again, people will remember Kelce's quote, and they'll say he called it. That's why the front office is white-knuckling the narrative, gripping it tighter than a steering wheel on black ice. Because they know how quickly this spirals. Once the Cleveland is a mess chorus starts, it doesn't stop. It gets louder, it builds, it takes on a life of its own, and right now, one retired lineman just gave the chorus its theme song. At some point, you stop calling it bad luck and start admitting the truth. The Cleveland Browns aren't just cursed. They're living inside their own circus, and no one seems to know how to break them out. The quarterback room? It's less a depth chart and more a punchline. 1 minute, it's Deshaun Watson, the $230 million face of the future. Next minute, it's Joe Flacco, pulled straight from his garage to launch deep balls like it's 2012. Blink again, and you'll see rookies like Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders being tossed around like props in somebody's halftime show. You couldn't script this chaos better if you tried. Trapped by bad contracts. Let's start with the obvious, the Watson deal. We already outlined the numbers, but the real issue is what those numbers mean. Watson can't be cut. He can't be traded. His cap hit blocks meaningful roster depth. Cleveland is chained to him, and every Sunday he limps, misfires, or looks off under the lights, that chain only feels heavier. This isn't just a contract gone wrong. It's the cage the Browns built for themselves. Dot.